Let me tell you something that nobody in the mainstream media is talking about right now, and it involves one of the most strategically critical waterways on the entire planet. A brand new bureaucratic nightmare created by the guys who literally drive speedboats into cargo ships, and an insurance policy so absurd that I had to read it 3 times just to make sure I wasn't being pranked. The Strait of Hormuz, roughly 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. 20% of the world's traded oil flows through it. And right now, whether that strait is actually genuinely legally open for business is one of the most complicated questions in global shipping. And probably the most important one nobody outside this industry is paying close enough attention to. Let's rewind just a little because context matters here. A Memorandum of Understanding, an MOU, was signed between the United States and Iran. And I do mean signed, electronically. 2 of the most powerful governments on Earth negotiating over a choke point that keeps the global economy breathing, and they couldn't even manage to be in the same room to put pen to paper. They did it digitally. Now, I've signed plenty of things electronically. You know what happens every time? There's a captcha. Some grid of blurry traffic lights or crosswalks that you have to identify to prove you're human. I genuinely wonder what version of that the Ayatollah had to solve. Please click all squares containing American imperialism. Good luck with that one. But jokes aside, and there will be more jokes, because this situation practically demands them, they did physically sign it as well. At Versailles, no less. Now, if you know anything about the history of documents signed at Versailles, you might feel a little uneasy about that choice of venue. The historian in me just needs to flag that. Moving on. Here's what the MOU actually says. And this is where things start to get interesting in that slow-burning, this can't be real kind of way. Under Section 4, the United States agreed to begin removing its naval blockade immediately after signing, with a full withdrawal completed within 30 days. During that same window, Iran is supposed to restore commercial vessel traffic proportional to pre-conflict levels. And if you look at the tracking data, AIS transponder signals compiled by analysts watching this situation, traffic through the strait is nowhere near where it was before hostilities escalated. We're talking about a significant gap between what the MOU promises and what's actually happening on the water. Section 5 is the one that's generating the most conversation among shipping professionals, maritime lawyers, and anyone else who's been following this closely. It states that Iran will use its best efforts to ensure the safe passage of commercial vessels with no charge for 60 days from the Persian Gulf to the Sea of Oman and back. It also says Iran will work with Oman to figure out the future administration of maritime services in the strait in accordance with international law. Safe passage, no charge, 60 days, coordination with Oman, international law. Hold on to every single one of those phrases, because we're about to see exactly how Iran interpreted them. Now, here's a development that dropped recently and has genuinely raised eyebrows across the entire maritime industry. 7 supertankers, ships capable of carrying around 14 million barrels of crude oil combined, were detected leaving the Iranian port of Chabahar on the Gulf of Oman. They're heading east toward the Strait of Malacca, almost certainly bound for China. The US naval blockade has been lifted, meaning Iranian crude is flowing again. And because sanctions pressure has eased alongside the MOU, Iran can now sell that oil at a significantly higher price than it could during the blockade period. That's not nothing. That's a massive economic shift happening in real time. But while all of that was unfolding, something else quietly appeared. Something that should be getting a lot more attention than it is. Meet the Persian Gulf Strait Authority, the PGSA. This is a newly created entity, and I want you to really absorb who created it. Established by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. These are the same people who, for years before any of the current conflict began, were racing out in speedboats to harass commercial vessels transiting the strait. The same people who attached limpet mines to tankers. The same people who seized ships and held crews. And I should mention, because this doesn't seem to be getting enough coverage anywhere, Iran is still holding 2 Mediterranean shipping company container ships and their crews, right now, as we speak. No discussion of releasing them in the MOU. Just want to make sure that doesn't get lost in the shuffle. So the IRGC creates the PGSA, and the PGSA posts an announcement. If you want to transit the Strait of Hormuz, you now need to apply for a permit through their official website. That's right, they have a website, pgsa.ir. They have an email address. They have a 4-page memorandum laying out exactly how this is going to work. Let's walk through it, because every single paragraph is its own adventure. Your application will be reviewed, and you'll receive one of 3 responses: approved, incomplete, or prohibited. What gets you prohibited? The document doesn't say. It just says passage can be explicitly denied. That's the entire explanation. Moving right along. Standard review and response time is 48 hours. The permit is valid for 5 calendar days and covers a single transit only, one way through. Want to come back? Apply again. Fill out the form again, wait another 48 hours. The PGSA apparently has all the time in the world. Here's where it gets genuinely surreal. Mandatory insurance. All vessels must hold a valid insurance policy approved by the PGSA itself. Now here's the part that sounds almost reasonable at first. Currently, the insurance is being provided free of charge, with all expenses covered by the Islamic Republic of Iran. Okay, fine. Weird, but fine. But then you read the next line. The PGSA reserves the right to introduce insurance fees in the future to be determined by the relevant insurer. They are telling you up front that the price can change at any time for any reason decided by parties they haven't identified yet. This is essentially the terms and conditions you click through without reading on every app you've ever downloaded. Except in this case, non-compliance doesn't just get your account suspended. The document mentions penalties, revocation of passage permissions, and further legal action. And given who's enforcing this, you can probably use your imagination about what further legal action looks like in the middle of the Persian Gulf. The passage corridor itself is required to run just north of the traffic separation scheme, entirely within Iranian territorial waters. Any deviation, including using the southern Omani channel that the US Navy had set up as the safe alternative route during the blockade, is described as a violation. Read that again. Using the route that the US military designated as safe and confirmed clear of mines could, under the PGSA framework, be treated as a violation of their terms. Meanwhile, the Joint Maritime Information Center has issued a notice confirming that active mine clearance operations are still ongoing. There is at least one confirmed mine location in the area, roughly 1.6 kilometers from the main traffic corridor, just outside the channel, but close enough to matter. The International Traffic Separation Scheme, which ships normally use, should currently be avoided. The recommended route runs along the Omani coastline. So you have 2 competing sets of instructions. The US military says, use the southern Omani channel. It's been confirmed clear. The PGSA says, use the route through Iranian territorial waters and submit an application through our website first, or face consequences. I went and looked at the PGSA's insurance document. I know, I couldn't help myself. The coverage is described as war voyage insurance, and the list of covered perils includes capture, seizure, arrest, restraint, detainment, and derelict mines. And here's the thing. If you look at that list and think about what has been happening in the Strait of Hormuz over the past several years, those perils are almost exclusively things that the IRGC itself has been responsible for. Iran is offering you insurance against Iranian behavior. They have created a protection racket and dressed it in legal language. There are exclusions, naturally. War between major powers, specifically the US, UK, France, Russia, and China, voids the policy. Piracy isn't covered. Nuclear risks aren't covered. And this part I genuinely love. Blocking or trapping isn't covered unless it results from capture, seizure, arrest, restraint, or detainment, which again are all things Iran does. The exclusion effectively excludes the exclusion. You also irrevocably waive, and I mean irrevocably, permanently, no recourse ever, any right to object to, dispute, or challenge the PGSA's decisions about your permit, the enforcement of their passage rules, or the application of the insurance policy. You sign that form, you have given up every legal avenue you might otherwise have, forever. The document says so in exactly those words. And the insurance is subject to the laws and practice of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Now go back to the MOU. Section 5. Safe passage with no charge. Best efforts. In accordance with international law. Coordination with Oman. Does any of what the PGSA has laid out sound like what the MOU describes? Because I've read both documents more than once now, and I'm having a very hard time connecting them. The notice to mariners from official maritime authorities confirms the strait has technically been declared open. Mine clearance is ongoing. The southern Omani route has been confirmed safe. Traffic is beginning to move again. Chinese vessels, car carriers, various commercial ships have started making transits. The visual traffic data shows ships moving through. But moving through where? Under whose authority? With what paperwork? Whose insurance? Here's where we actually are. The Strait of Hormuz is open in the sense that ships are physically moving through it. It is not open in the sense that there's a clear, agreed upon, internationally recognized framework governing how that happens. You have the US military saying, use this route. You have the PGSA saying, use that route or face penalties. You have mines that haven't all been cleared yet. You have an insurance scheme created by the same organization that caused most of the damage the insurance is supposed to cover. And you have 60 days on a clock that started ticking the moment the MOU was signed, after which all of these unresolved questions become even more urgent. The shipping industry runs on certainty, on known routes, known costs, known rules, known liability. What exists right now in the Strait of Hormuz is the opposite of that. It is a layered, contradictory, legally ambiguous situation being administered by two entities with fundamentally different visions of what an open strait actually means. Whether that gets resolved in 60 days, or whether it gets dramatically more complicated, is the story that matters more than almost anything else happening in global trade right now. If this kind of deep dive breakdown is what you come here for, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. We're doing a full detailed breakdown of the MOU sections and everything the PGSA has put out in the weekend review. So that is one you absolutely do not want to skip. And if you want to support the channel, share this video, leave a thumbs up, hit the super thanks button, or join us over on Patreon where you can support the work monthly. Because in shipping right now, there is never a shortage of genuinely unbelievable stories, and we are just getting started.